Maybe you already applied for a job and get rejected, or you try to get a job and somebody other was taken. And so you already heard that there is a so-called hidden labor market. This means a market there where not everybody gets access to. And so today we will have a look and we will research what you can do to get access to this hidden labor market. If you normally search a job, how do you search it? Normally, most people just look for published jobs in newspapers or on job boards, or they think about, what could be an interesting enterprise, and do the research of the website. And maybe they ask their friends and colleagues. So they just behave like they were at a buffet. They go at the job market or at the job restaurant and look what's in there and what they can pick out. To see the difference, we have to investigate how enterprises behave when they look for employees and what's important for them. There are four things. It has to be fast. It has to be cheap. It has to be reliable. And if they search somebody, it should be effective. They don't waste much time, money, or other costs. And in the end, this brings them normally to a specific process. First, they look if they have to search for new applicants, or if they have a new job. They search internal. They ask their colleagues, or the boss asks the employees, hey, do you know? Or they think about who could do it. If they don't find somebody, they think about, okay, do we know, or did we see some excellent work or some work samples of anybody that will fit to the tasks that have to be done, to the challenges? And if they don't find these work samples, then they ask for recommendations or for contacts. They ask their buddies, the same like you do when you search for a job and ask your friends. They ask in their network, hey, can you recommend me somebody who could do this job? And you see these green points, or these green sections, they are all hidden. This means they are normally not published. And there comes the next one. If they don't have found anybody yet, then they ask a headhunter or an agency to help them. And next step is, if this is still not successful, they place a job announcement, because here it's getting expensive. You have to enterprises pay thousands of dollars or of euros for job announcements, and the problem is it's less effective, and then there come hundreds of people sometimes, especially at big enterprises, and yes, there come the people that look at the buffet, and now they find the jobs. The problem is it's very it's very ineffective. Or inefficient. You have to search for hundreds of application documents, and this is a lot of work to do. And you don't know the people so good, or the applicants. You know them better if they come from internal, if you have already seen how they work, or if you get recommendations, or if a headhunter or agency does the work to make the pre-selection. And last but not least, if enterprises hadn't found anybody yet, they do they have some speculative applications that could fit the job. And if you bring this together, you come to the actual situation on the job market. The situation is that we have about 1/3 of our jobs, of all the jobs, they are published, and you will find them in the internet or on the job boards. But the huge amount, about 2/3 of all of them, is not published. They are on the so-called hidden labor market. And now let's have a look at the other side of the job market. How do the applicants behave? To remember, we have 1.5 million job offers on the open market, and we have about 3 million on the hidden labor market in Germany. And we have about 2.5 million job seekers searching for new jobs. And 95% of them will go to the open labor market. They behave like they were at the buffet, and only 5% go to the hidden labor market. And you see that it's getting quite dense at the open labor market. And on the other hand, these that know how to get access to the hidden labor market, they are nearly all alone and can show up how they are and get all the attention of the enterprises. So next steps will be how to get access to this hidden labor market. How do they do it? Let's remember, we had these steps that enterprises follow when they search for applicants, then when they do their placements. And what does this mean for us? It means that, sure, if you already have a job, it's most easy. But maybe you can force this by doing an internship or temporary help, or if you are self-employed and are already for projects in this enterprises, try to give them these work samples, show up, publish posts, or do some documents, white papers, get active, and try to get people find some work samples of you. Maybe if you are in information technology, you can program some apps or tools, or at least do some charity work where other people see how you work. Sure, you should activate your network to get recommendations. They have to know you, and there's a lot about visibility. We will talk about this later. And the other things, the next 3 steps are, normally if you're a beginner, a freshman, the headhunters are not so interesting for you. They will come when you have some experience. And the classical way with job documents we already talked about, or it's just like you normally do. And if you go for the speculative applications, then it's important that you have really fitting applications, and that you can add clear additional value. This means you have to know what's the problem of the enterprise is, and then you have to serve a solution for it. And if you go for speculative applications, there is a big trap many people go in. They just think, what enterprises are interesting? What enterprise do I know? And these are usually the big ones. And the big ones, they get flooded with speculative applications. And so they usually will sort you out. But smaller enterprises, they are open to it. So the clue is to find smaller enterprises and to apply them. And then they will be more open-minded for your application. So if you want to get access to the hidden labor market, there are 3 steps. First is you should prepare properly. It's really important that you have a clear vision what you want, and know yourself, and do a self-analysis. And then next step is to find and know your targets. The second strategy is to build up strong network and increase your visibility. And the third is that you should do this all strategically and by system. Let's start with the basics. The basics are, I made a section for 3 parts. First is to prepare properly, do a stock check. Second is search suitable enterprises. And third, get to know your customers and then get in contact. What's important about the stock check? If you should know yourself if you want to show up in an authentic way and in a convincing way. So do really check about your competences, what you know and what you can, and think about how could you serve on the job market, and which jobs you could deliver, or you could apply for. It's sometimes not that easy. Maybe you have your degree, but there are so many ways that are open to you. I will show you some tools that you can use. Next step is you should become aware of your goals and about the purpose you work for. And because if you find fitting enterprises that correspond with your values, then you have a big intersection, and then it's more easy to come together and work together. One question you can ask yourself is if there is a topic that you could talk about in front of more than 100 people. And if you find this topic, then you know that it's really something you're burning for, and that you're already good in. And this is usually something you can deliver value or added value to enterprises too. So if you want to know or if you want to research how job opportunities you got and what you can get all of your degree, try to check the Berufenet of the Arbeitsagentur. It's like a Wikipedia for jobs, and they will show you what they have an interesting section at which you can look at the perspectives and what job alternatives there exist. You can put them in the so-called job photomat too. If you find job in the Berufenet, just put it in the Futuromat, and then they will help you to see how this job will develop and what are the key competences you should care about. Another thing is you can use the Jobbörse. The Jobbörse there are many job boards, but the Jobbörse has the advantage that they have to use the official terms for jobs. This means if you find a job in the Berufenet, you can put it in the Jobbörse. If you take other job boards, for example, like Stepstone and so on, they write it as they think that's suitable. And in the Berufenet, you have the system behind, and in the Jobbörse. And so you find the missing link. This means, for example, you search for your degree and do the research in the Jobbörse. Then you find job offers with maybe other job titles, but in brackets you see your degree, and so you get a hunch, or you get an insight what jobs you can apply for, and this is very useful, especially if you have special degrees. Another possibility is to research at Xing. This means just research at Xing your profile or your degree, and see what other applicants or other people on the job market, what they do if they have your degree, and so you get an insight how you could develop and where you could apply for. Next step is you should find your why and Ikigai. It's about Ikigai is a famous concept, and maybe you already saw the TED talk from Simon Sinek. He's talking about purpose and about how to start with your why. We know that if we know what we work for, it's just we were just more motivated, and we try to get or to produce more benefits, and we are more productive. And so it will be much more interesting and fulfilling for you if you do a self-check and know what you are working for and what's your purpose and your why. And the interesting thing is that when you find enterprises that go along with this, you instantly see that it's a good match, and they see it too, and so they are much more open for your application. So we are the next point at the search for suitable enterprises. There you can take some enterprise databases. I introduced some links. There are the classical yellow pages in Germany too. There's the link, or you can take the enterprise databases of the chambers. You can use exhibition registers if there are exhibitions in your industry. Just look who is there, and then do the research of the enterprises. And sure, read the ads and articles in specialist magazines to get an insight who's in this field, who's active. And interesting is a list of the hidden champions. There is a so-called Weltmarktführer-Index where you can have a look at the hidden champions, and they are normally, most of them are well known by their customers, but are hardly not known by the applicants. And so it's an interesting method to get really professional enterprises. They sometimes have really problems or big problems to get fitting staff. Another interesting way, the last one, is to search your future me at Xing. You need for this the professional account, the premium account, but I think it's worth the investment, and I think normally they have, especially for students, they have an offer for the first year where you pay about $1 per month. And so I would use this. But the trick is, if you search your future me, think about where you want to be in 3, 5, or 7 years, and then just search this at this job description at the profiles, and when you then find some Xing profiles, you can see their curriculum vitae. You see how they have developed, and so you get an insight what have been their jobs before and at which enterprises they have been. If you got the premium version of Xing, you can do you have much more filters. You can, for example, say you only want to look for profiles in a certain zip code area or in a certain country, and so you get an insight, or you get an idea about at which, if you research some profiles, then you get an idea where they have worked and which enterprises are have a demand for your jobs, or for what you can offer. You should know your customers. If you don't know them, it's hard to deliver them or to get attracted or to attract them. Therefore, you should start an info phase. You can do this via Xing, for example, too. The info phase is that you just ask them for a quick interview and some questions, and you try to understand their problems and what they're in at the moment, what's the situation at the job market or at the work market. And once you know your customers, you can try to add out some value that prepare some added value that you can deliver. Therefore, I recommend you future research again. This means just think about it, in which field you want to work. You already now have some jobs that could be interesting, and then just do this research at Xing, for example. I love LinkedIn, but I appreciate Xing for this because it has a much cheaper premium account, and especially for the German market, it's perfectly suitable. And so you should just search fitting profiles, and then when you find them, write them a short email or a short mail in Xing and ask them, tell them about your situation, and ask them if it's possible to ask them 4 questions about their work, because you're interested in this work and you want maybe to develop there, and before doing this you want just talk to somebody who already did this job. And important is that you make clear demands and have a clear demand. This means ask them for 4 questions and ask them for 7 or 8 minutes. The problem is if you ask them for 10 minutes, the problem is that everybody asks for 10 minutes and it's getting up to 2 hours. And if you ask for 8 minutes, and say 4 questions, it's something that's that sharp and that precise, and yes, that they will be open. Researchers show that normally if you ask people in this way, you get about 82% of response if they have an open profile. But if you find active profiles and ask them if you may interview them for 4 minutes, for questions in 8 minutes, about more than 80% of them should be open. The question is, what are these 4 questions? These are quite simple. Just ask them, hey, how did you get your job? What's the positive about it? What's the negative about it? And then maybe what can you tell me else? And so, or can you give me some hints? And just let them talk, and just at the moment do a Zoom meeting and try to get out of these questions. And if you do this with many of them, so you should your target should be at least to talk with about 10 target persons in one industry and for one job to get a real feeling about it. And then you got the advantage that you gain many insights, and it's forming a clear picture about the job. And then you can think what you can attribute to this job if you have to apply for it. And if you then decide to apply for it, then you have to get in contact. And now it's not getting in contact with former colleagues. It's getting in contact with the superiors. And you enter in the application phase. Now it's about find the person in charge. And then you should already have prepared tailored documents and a good elevator pitch, and then just call them or just write them. And normally it's more successful to call them. Maybe you can other people can give you a lead, and always try to watch out for opportunities to get in contact. Maybe there is an interesting article in a newspaper about the enterprise, or they had posted something in LinkedIn or Xing, or somebody recommended you, or yes, something like this. Watch out for opportunities and then get in response. And if you want to do it all speculative, what do you think is the best month? What could be the best month for it? The best month normally is in autumn. It's about October, because if you can convince an prospective employer about you, then they still can take you in the budgeting process. So it's really the best month is October, maybe November, but at the end of the year it's too late, and at the beginning they are already in other troubles. So in this phases they are open. This means if you want to get attracted, you should increase your visibility in the time before. This means in summer or in spring and summer. If you increase your time and your visibility there, and they can think about you to take you on their budget in autumn. So we are the next point. We already talked now about visibility, and let's have a look what you can do to build up a strong network and how to increase your visibility. Important if you go for networking, that it's not about same. You know, if you and your target are the same person, then you are too similar, and so he has no advantage from you. It's more about the intersection. This means you should find somebody that you can give added value with your knowledge. So it's about find this target persons that have an intersection with you and that you could deliver. Important is that networking is not about collecting contacts. It's more about planting relations. It's the goal is to gain trust and to build up these relations, and to bring someday the contact into real world. This is normally where still contracts are made. And so if you do the networking at LinkedIn, for example, it's great, but you should not only collect these connections, because at the end they will make contracts with people they know and they trust, and so they usually have to meet you one-on-one finally, and this is what should be the destiny. Therefore, there exists a 70-20-10 rule. This means try 70% to help others. If you see what their problems are, try to produce something, maybe a checklist or a white paper, or just a comment, or if you know the problems of your network partners and find an interesting article, just forward to them. Or if you find an interesting article, post it and comment it on your LinkedIn page, and use about 20% for self-presentation, and ask only 10% others for help, because people very quickly see if you just want to exploit the network, and if they see that you invest something, then it's normally very easy to get something out of it. And investing is about producing valuable, high-quality content. So you will gain trust because people see, okay, that you have qualifications and you have good intentions. And the ground rule is, the basic rule is, first give and then take. And by doing this, we already see that the visibility is very important. Imagine you go at a party and want to get to know new people, and then you stand all alone in one corner and don't move, and so the party will pass away and nothing will happen. And it's nearly the same at the internet party or at the networking party. If you don't move, if you are not active, you will not be visible. And if we're talking about the success out from networking, it's only about 10% is about your competence, about 30% is of your image, and the success will depend up to 60% from your visibility. And there, a thumb rule is about that you should invest about 15 minutes every day for LinkedIn, and yes, try to add bring some added value to try to post interesting stuff, and yes, and to nurture your network. What you can do for increasing visibility? We already talked about some things. First is get a sharp profile that everybody knows what you're standing for. And then if you have found your topic, what should already have happened, then start to write and speak about it. And important is don't copy and paste, because today, if somebody's interested in one field, we all know how it works. I do some quick researches, I watch some YouTube videos, I read some articles and blogs, and so I get a hunch of what's in this market. And me, for example, I saw it when I wrote my book about nonverbal communication in the recruiting process. And then when I have written it, I did a formal research and found about many blogs about body language in job interviews. And then when I read them, I saw it was 90% all the same, more or less. And I knew what I had written in my book and where the difference was. And so I think you get a basic amount of information if you do a normal research, and everybody knows this. And so if you dig deeper in this and go create your own stuff, then you will make a difference, and then you will gain visibility because people see this is something new, and then they will start to share it and to appreciate it. Don't make the fall that you just share and don't comment it. Try to make a quick comment to get in this to add this personal note. And what's always interesting is storytelling. You should collect and develop strong stories that you can talk about, because we know people love stories. It's always much more simple to remember good stories than only hard facts. And so try to find good stories and store them, because they always happen. But the problem is that people often don't store them. So some days later, maybe you won't remember them. And though it's just about collecting and storing them. And do it frequently, like we talked about before. You should invest about 15 minutes every day, especially for LinkedIn. And you can do more. It's could serve too if you make a post in the morning, and then in the afternoon again you have a look at how it developed, how people responded to it, and yes, if you can deepen the relationship with them. If you, maybe if they respond you can answer them and build up the contact, or strengthen the contact. And so, by the way, by the time you will develop and will become an expert in your field, we know that if you really do hard work in your field, it will cost about up to 3 years to become a real expert. And so it's better to start right now. But when you once have reached the state, yes, you are in the mind of the people when they think about your topic. And then especially enterprises will ask you and get in, yes, come to you and ask you for work or for your help. There is an interesting TED talk, but it's a German one about storytelling. I can recommend you. It's in German, but it's very I appreciate it a lot. So I can recommend this to you for storytelling at the moment. And sure, visibility. If you don't have profiles at Xing or LinkedIn, or maybe at the job browser too, then you should open it there right now. So let's talk about some facts and have a look at LinkedIn and Xing. Sure, LinkedIn is number one. There are nearly 700 million people at the moment, or profiles, that are at LinkedIn. And more people are changing from Xing to LinkedIn. In the past, LinkedIn was in the English-speaking market. And so in the German market, Xing could develop. But once LinkedIn opened to the German market too, and yes, had a German section, now more and more people are changing. They are leaving Xing and going to LinkedIn. And so LinkedIn at the moment has about 100 million active users daily. This means 1 of 7 of the LinkedIn profiles are really active and doing their business every day. And the interesting thing is that's what we talked about before about the visibility. Only 3 millions of this nearly 700 millions. This means it's about 4 or 5 out of 1,000 share weekly content on LinkedIn. This means if you start to just share a weekly content or twice a week, then you're really at a terrific small group of about 5 of 1,000. This means you can really make a difference and increase your visibility and the quality of your profile and how people see you, because it's like we talked before. If you move, if you get active, you get visible. And with this 3 million posts, they create 3 billion impressions per week. This yes, and so that's a lot. And so try to be part of this process. And we know that at LinkedIn there are more than 100 million profiles from higher management and decision makers. That means you have your target group, and about 80% of the business leads come from over LinkedIn already. This means people recommend, and really LinkedIn has really, I think most of you already know it. For those who not, yes, you should be there, because in the future it's getting more and more important. And you, for example, you can ask other people for recommendations. They can make the link to interesting network partners for you, or they can give you testimonials and that you yes, made good work for them, for example, and things like this. And you have an own publishing section. This is no commercial about LinkedIn, but it's really a helpful tool, so I recommend it. And we saw that it creates 3 times more conversions than Twitter and Facebook. This means more following activities. And it's the most used social platform under the Fortune 500. And if you go there, sure, it's important. We talked about visibility and personal contact without a photo is nearly impossible. So we see that that's the real basics. People profiles with photos get much more visitors and much more messages. So if you go there, yes, be sure to take a professional photo with you. And if you compare it with Xing, we have still more members in Xing or more profiles in Germany and Austria and Switzerland, but LinkedIn is coming, and so it's not about only about the profiles. It's about how active these profiles are, and I got the impression that at the moment LinkedIn is much more active and much more vital, and it's really living. And Xing is I think it's the future will be LinkedIn. But the advantage of Xing is that you got a cheaper premium account, like I talked before, and so you can use a more advanced search for finding profiles and for asking them. And if you find this profile and they don't answer, maybe you just take the name and search them in LinkedIn, and but so you can save them some money and get good results. So 2 points you should care about. The one is share content, try to produce it, and the second one is the photo, like we talked before. Now the next question is, if you build up your network, who could be an interesting network partner? Interesting network partners are people that already trust you. It's because they can recommend you to other people. They can say, okay, they can. In business, it's all about trust, and in digital business or in the digital world, it's even more about trust, because everybody can set up a good-looking website and a nice profile, but we don't know what's behind. And so, if real people can give you a testimonial and say that they trust you to other people, it's really helpful. And so these are the first important network partners for you. Then you can ask, you should wonder or ask yourself who already has a strong network, because if you gain the credibility of this person and the attention and the interest, and if you gain his trust, so that he will open his network, this will be has a huge effect. You can already you can too have a look who proceeds up the career ladder. This means who now is an interesting contact that I can perhaps add some or bring some added value, and by the time people will develop, and so now it's kind of planting the seeds for the future. If you have now some interest, or you already have this contacts because if you're studying at the moment, and if you're younger, then people will develop, and you will see how they have developed in the next 10 or 20 years. It's very interesting, just to keep these relations too. And the interesting thing is, if you help them to proceed the career ladder, and if you join them, then yes, they will remember you someday. And at networking, you don't know when this will happen, but if you follow some basic rules, you got the advantage that somewhere in the future, one of the seeds that you planted right now will flourish and will become a plant that will help you to go further. An important aspect is to wonder or to ask who really benefits from your help. And I can give you the hint, it's not always the CEO. It's much more often it's the direct superior, or it's the business unit manager, or maybe somebody from HR. So don't be so keen on the CEOs. Many people are so keen on the CEOs. And if you are a CEO and everybody's keen on you, and you have to make the real hard selection. It's a little bit the same like the open labor market we talked before. If so many people coming to them and wanting something from them, they have to, yes, make a quick decision who will serve them and who not. So if you go to the CEO, be sure that you have something that's interesting for them, and then, yes, then present it to him or show it to him with a concise elevator pitch. But be sure that sometimes the people in the second line are more interesting for you, because when they are convinced that you can help them, then they will pitch at the CEO, and then he will say, okay, do it, fetch them, and if you are convinced that these can bring some added value to our enterprise, then hire him or ask him for a project, something like this. And try to put the work samples and contacts to other networks. Just think about how these work samples will speak for themselves and for you. And if you bring this and manage it that it will get to other networks, then you can widen your influence a lot. An interesting thing is for other networks is, for example, Stiftungen.org. It's charity work, and with Stiftungen.org, it's interesting that many Germans work in Stiftungen on a voluntary basis. They do charity work, and the interesting thing is that if you find a Stiftung, there you can that meets you with your interests, then you have a common topic. And if you work there and the people you meet there meet you in another network, in another context, and so they're more open, because you don't have this direct interest of help me, I need a job. It's more about, okay, we worked together at this project and it was really good. And often it's that maybe the partners of some CEOs or something like this, people that can recommend you. And so try to, if you go at Stiftung.org, you can search for every city about what Stiftungen are there, and so you can easily get orientation in your hometown. So let's take a short recap. First, it's important to find the right intersection partners. Like we told before, don't collect contacts, try to build up relations. And what can help too is to visualize your network. Really, just make a plan on your wall and think about who do you know. And then if you look at it frequently, you see, yes, it's always you keep it on your mind. And then the next step should be to think about how can you get good contacts that you don't already have. And so maybe you check the contacts of your contacts, and if you have a good relation to somebody and you find an interesting contact in their network, and then ask for a recommendation, ask him to give you the link to the other person, and to tell him something good about you, and then you can show up later. And important is that if you do this, you should do it within 72 hours. There is a 70-hour rule. Normally, things you don't start within 3 days. There comes so much new stuff, so you will lose the older ones. And so, if you want to bring something in reality, you have to start within 72 hours. And what you should ask yourself, if people don't recommend you to the network, just ask them, hey, what's at the moment, what prevents you from presenting me to a network, or to give me the recommendation. So this feedback could sometimes be hard, but it will help you to develop. And then it's always a strategic, has a strong strategic aspect. This means maybe now your profile is too weak or your reputation to recommend you. But if you take this feedback and develop, in 1 or 2 years, it will be so much stronger that the same people can do this. For example, I made the same experience. I had some training, it was okay. It was one of the first trainings I gave. And then I didn't get a follow contract or a second training. But then 4 or 5 years later, when I already had given some hundreds of trainings, and when I then published my book, the same person came back to me and recommended me to a very high-profile networking partner of him. And he booked another training again. So I had once I had published the book and my reputation became rose, I immediately get this contacts. Important is that you search with strategy and system. This means do it continuously. If you want to get in the hidden label market, you have to do it frequently. This means you should do it by system and continuously. And why, you see if you have a look at the situation of enterprises, how they search or how successful their search for new applicants is, for new employees. And you see here that while the big enterprises normally and the middle ones, they easily find applicants and their search is successful, more than 30% of the small ones have to stop the search because they don't find anybody. And if the stop is search, normally they search because the job is vacant and they need somebody. And if they stop it, they do it because they are frustrated because they don't find anybody. So you will have the best chances if you find small companies, because you really can one of three of them, these 30%, and they normally have open positions somehow. This doesn't mean that this is especially your position, but generally from the statistics says that they have the open positions, and so it's much more easy for you to get a foot in the door. And what you should do, looking at newspapers and job boards isn't a way for the hidden labor market, but important is that you store this job offers you find. When I say you should do it strategically or systematically, I mean you should do it by strategy. And this means do it all the time. Always when you're, for example, when you're now in the second or third semester, already try to look for jobs, because jobs rotate. You know, this means if you look for new jobs every week and search and find the interesting ones and collect them, and already you don't apply, but you get an idea at which enterprises you could apply in the future, because when they already have had a search for your profile now, then yes, in the future there will be an interesting enterprise too. And so this is why you should get in close contact with the job market all the time. You can install job robots that just give you an information when a fitting job is published, and you can read the industrial sector news. And what I would do, if you all the time you find an interesting website or an interesting company, just go on their career website and then just take an Excel sheet and copy paste the link to this career website in this Excel sheet. And so by the time you will just have a nice collection of links to interesting enterprises, and quick check if they have published some positions. You can install a Google alert for significant keywords like your job position or your city and greenfields development. Then you get information when they publish new, and when there are new enterprises that will open. And I would do it classically. If I find an interesting job ad, I print out and put it in a 3-ring binder, or maybe you store it as a PDF in a folder. But try to really to keep the interesting job offers. And what you can do too, you can do appointments in your Outlook diary or in your calendar, and then you may wonder why. Why is because the jobs, we know that about 1 of 4 jobs or the new jobs they are not successful. This means enterprises hire new employees, and 3 months or 6 months later, they have to stop it and to search again, and they fire the persons because they just don't fit, or the new employees see that the enterprise is not fitting and leave by themselves. So in Germany, we have a very strong labor right. This means employees have many rights. And for example, if you have worked for 2 years in an enterprise and they give you an unlimited contract, it's very hard for them. It's or difficult for them to stop it, the contract. And so these 2 years are it's like a door. If once you're in, you're in the safe space, and before the enterprise hesitates a little bit to let you in. And so if they hire new staff, the first 3 or 6 months of the testing period. So if somebody is not fitting, they will fire him. And then after the first year contract, they think about, okay, is he suitable, or should we search again, or should we give him a second chance for the second year? And the end of the second year, they do the same. This means after 21 months, the enterprise has to decide whether they will take this employee or not. And so if you see that a job is offered today, maybe in May, then it will be filled in June or July. And so in 2 years, July, the contract will end and will change in an unlimited contract. And so when it's July, then you go back June, May, April. So normally in April, in 2 years, the enterprise has to make the decision whether to stay to give the unlimited contract to the employee or not. And so if you directly or if you exactly show up in these 21 months, you may have the chance, because the enterprise now is thinking, okay, should I give him the contract or not? And he thinks, okay, if I don't do it, I have to search for new stuff again. And so he's unsure or insecure. But if you show up at this moment and say, hey, look, I got a profile, and maybe the position is open, and then he can first have a look at you, and then you before publishing the job. And the same is happening after 1 year, and at the end of the trial period too. So if you find an interesting job, just copy paste it in your folder with a PDF with a job offer, and then there you can make a link to your diary or to your calendar in Outlook, and yes, go in the future at this significant points of time, and then it will remember you to check this again. And if it's interesting, you can do a research then and try to apply. So what's important generally is to get proactive and develop a creative research. This means you should handle new opportunities properly. That means within the 72 hours. if you want to change the sectors or the industries, you can start with a part-time job in the sector to get first experience there. And always think about as strategically. This means if it could help to have this mini job or part-time job now next to your study, just to get in contact to this industry and build up the first relations and links. And like I told before, try to produce some work samples that you can with which you can show up. Use Xing, like we already talked a little bit about, but screen the profiles in your network. Look who has interesting network partners or what you can do for them. Try to do the reverse search. This means look which topics or which topics you stand for, which keywords, and then just with the primary search you can look who searches these topics. And so if somebody searches your topic, so you have one good reason to contact him. And interesting too is to search for yourself. This means just do a research for the jobs or for the strengths of a person, and see who you will find, and then look where they will work and what their career has been, and just this will help you to get a more different perspectives. When I say search for yourself, sure, not search for your name, but search for your profile, and then see how other people has developed and what they do. Do the future research, like I showed before. Just imagine where you want to be in some years, and then ask people if you want to proceed up the career ladder. Search people that are already there and ask them for a quick interview, and say that you want to develop in this direction in the next years. And yes, how they came to their job, what's positive about it, what's negative about it, and what they can give you for recommendations or tips to what you could do to get there in the future too. And the interesting thing is that people, in communication psychology, we know that interest creates interest. This means if somebody asks me, I'm a little bit proud about my success, and if there now comes a younger person and asks me, hey, how did you do this? First of all, I'm a little bit pleased, and normally I'm open to help him and give him some insights and tips. And the second is if he then stays in contact with me, and sometimes, for example, he will send me interesting content and says, hey, Christian, I found this, and this may be interesting for you. And so I really build up this relation with him, and then in the future, imagine in 2 or 3 years in the future, maybe I will proceed up the career ladder too, and then my superior asked me, okay, who can we take, or do you know somebody for this position? And then I say, yes, I got a good contact to somebody, and maybe he's already interested for my position since many years, and I think it could make sense, and what I saw from him was good, and so we can have a look at him. And if you do this frequently and continuously, then you will. It's like I told before. You plant some seeds, and they can flourish in the future. An important aspect about networking is there is a thumb rule. It's called never lunch alone. So try to make good contacts to connect with them by dinner, for example, a business lunch. And I know, although this might be difficult at the moment, but I hope the times will change. And so you should try to get in contact with the sector and find your preferred company. And the interesting is, like we told before, when you know about 10 people in a sector, this will help you to get the necessary insights to understand their problems. And another rule is you should never lunch alone, but never go with other people to a networking event. This means you should go alone to networking events, because then you are forced to get in contact with new people. And I once read a story about a magician, and this is something it's really interesting because you can use it in your to build up relations too. This magician has he sent every year to Christmas, he sent personal Christmas cards to the people. He knew, or he gets to know this in this year. And the interesting thing was that it doesn't matter when he met them, when they get the Christmas card from him. He just described in this Christmas card how they met and how the evening was, or the situation was, and what he appreciated about it. And so they were very pleased by it, because you just imagine you meet somebody in March, and then in December you get a Christmas card from him, and he's describing what the evening was, and they were very impressed, and it had a huge effect. And the funny thing is that how he did it, because sure he didn't sit down in December and started to write hundreds of cards. No, he just did it like this, that he had a big staple of cards in his house. And once he met somebody, the next day he just wrote this card. And yes, he did like it was already December, until or even if it still was January. And so he's just stored the cards, and in December then he sent it away. And this made a huge impact. Today when we get advertisements or emails, and they are all produced by machines, so it's making a huge difference if you get a real handwritten card. And the problem is that we usually don't have the time to write dozens or hundreds of cards. But if you do it frequently, this means writing one card will cost you about 5 minutes. And if you get used to it, it will be no big effort. And so if you do this frequently, people will be very impressed. And this was a nice story and a nice trick or hint I can give you at the end of our seminar, or of this keynote. So that's how getting to the labor market is about. If you have further questions or seek for further informations, just contact me. You can write me an email, or if you find other ways to how to get in the hidden labor market, I would be curious about them. So I would be thankful if you write me other ways. And maybe you want to make connection on LinkedIn, or even if you want to go deeper in the field of job interviews, maybe my book for you is interesting for you. Also, it has been written for recruiters, but it covers the communication in job interviews, and we know that the nonverbal communication makes about 80% of the recruiter's decision. So this book could help, I think, everybody who has ever been in or will be in job interviews to understand much more what's going on there and to master the process. And whether you read it or not, I just wish you best success. And yes, till next.